How are you, Bob?
You good? Okay, so let's see. It is 7 o'clock. The Town of Chester Zoning Board of Appeals is called to order. As is our custom, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, to the 21st of September Zoning Board meeting. Let's see, let's start with introductions since we are being broadcast. So we'll start on the end to my right.
Giuseppe Casara.
Julie Bell.
Rob Dickover, counsel.
Greg Feigelson, chair.
Melissa Cook, secretary.
Dan Dollinger.
Tom Atkin.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a quorum, and it looks like with Walt's absence, Giuseppe, you will be voting tonight. Let's see. So we have two items on the agenda this evening. We have a return to the Michael Collins application, 524 Pine Hill Road. The intent is to have a public hearing. And we also have Rimache. Did I say that right? We have an application review for a setback for an addition to a house. So let's, without further ado, let's start with the first item on the agenda. This is 524 Pine Hill Road. The construction, just to refresh everyone's memory, the construction of a pole barn in the front yard where a pole barn or any other accessory structure is not permitted. We had a fair amount of discussion last time. We talked about the fact that it's a very deep lot, that there was, I guess some people had mentioned they didn't think that the structure was visible from the road. Is there any other comments? And I think you also provided a distance for us. It was like
355, I think.
Right. So thanks for that. And we also discussed the fact that the barn would not be 50 feet in front of the line defined by the front of the dwelling. Right, that's correct. Any other discussion? The board have any other questions for the applicant, general concerns or questions prior to moving into the public hearing for this application?
I think we asked him a lot last time.
You think we put them to the ringer last
Yeah,
time?
yeah, I think
All right,
so.
I'm not seeing any questions or concerns. All right, so before we go to the public hearing, I need to verify that all of the mailings were carried out in accordance with our policies and verify that the publication was made in a timely manner in the Times Herald Record.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so having cleared that hurdle, I will make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
Julie will second. We'll just do an oral vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nay. Anybody abstain? All right, so the public hearing is open. Before we, I don't see anybody here from the public, certainly not in the room at the moment. We'll check about online in a moment, but before we do that, let me just ask Melissa, did we receive any correspondence regarding this application by email or letter or any other?
No.
Okay. Let's see, Andrina, I'm sorry. Do we have anybody online wishing to speak for or against this application? Is there anybody actually online? One person, good for them. Okay, so it looks like nobody's here to speak for or against the application. So then I will close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
We don't need to make a motion for closing public hearings, but thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Okay, so now before we actually get to the nitty gritty of voting on whether or not to grant the variance, we need to review the 5 factors. I will note that we did take care of SECRA last time, and there was a 239 referral necessary, and we did get local determination, which is where the county tells us that it's up to us basically, and their letter was dated July 21st. So we're good to go. So now let's take a look at the 5 questions for an area variance that we are obligated to address before making a decision. And let's just start one by one, as is our custom. So the first question is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created if we were to grant this variance. Tom?
No.
Dan?
I'm going to say no. I believe the structure is going to be far enough off the road that it's not very visible, and nobody from the neighborhood is here to speak out against it either.
but I completely agree with your points, and I would say no as well. Julie?
I'm going to say no. Nobody's here.
Giuseppe?
No.
Second of the 5 questions, whether the applicant can achieve his goals via a reasonable alternative which does not involve the necessity of an area variance. Tom?
No.
Dan? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to say, in this case, I think I'm going to say yes. I mean, there are places on the property that the garage could be constructed that would be compliant with the code, although they may not be
Ideal.
favorably, with the terrain, but they're, technically it would be feasible.
Okay, I'm going to say no really reasonable alternatives exist. Julie?
I'm going to say no reasonable ones.
Giuseppe?
No.
Okay, and number 3, whether the variance is substantial. Tom?
No.
Dan?
No, I would say, given the fact that the front yard is over 350 feet long, I don't believe it's substantial.
Yeah, I will agree and say no as well. Julie?
No.
And Giuseppe?
No.
Number 4, whether the variance will have an adverse impact on physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. Tom?
No.
Dan?
No, I don't think a pole barn will affect physical or environmental conditions.
No, I would say no as well. Julie?
No.
And Giuseppe?
No.
And finally, whether there has been any self-created difficulty. Tom?
No.
Dan?
Again, I'm going to say yes. I believe there is some self-created difficulty because the applicant could have been aware of this issue when he purchased the property or when he decided to construct this building.
I'll say yes as well.
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And Giuseppe?
Yes.
Okay, we have completed our obligation reviewing the 5 questions. Any questions before I make a motion on this application? Questions, concerns, or comments? If not, I will make a motion to grant the variance for this application at 524 Pine Hill Road to permit an accessory building in the front yard, not to extend beyond 50 feet from the front line defined by the front of the house. And we'll take just an oral vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? All right, the variance is granted. Thank you for your patience. I know you had to wait an extra month, so really definitely thank you for that. We should be able to get you the signed copy pretty quick. I know tomorrow, really.
Tomorrow.
Okay, so you can get off. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty quick. All right,
When
thank
get
you.
out of work.
Yeah.
Yep, that's fine. Okay.
That's it. You're dismissed.
Good luck.
You
You
too.
too.
Yeah.
All right, next up is Ramache. I'm going to make sure I got that right. You want to come forward a little bit? Hopefully, so this is 46 Maple Lane. This is a building permit denial from the building inspector. This has to do with an addition on the back of the house, which was described as a rear yard setback problem. But our astute attorney discovered this afternoon that it's actually a side yard issue because this is a corner lot. And because this is a corner lot, according to our code, if you could shrink this a little bit, according to our code, the actual street-facing part of the property that is the narrowest is actually the front. So, yeah, so the Poplar Lane, believe it or not, and the whoever did this survey actually got it wrong as well. Can't blame them because the front of the house faces the longest road and it just seems logical. But turns out, you have the one that I made, which is so I took my red crayon out and redrew it to help clarify the way we should be looking at this. So,
Wait, the front yard is really on
so
Poplar?
3 is the front yard.
So the address really shouldn't be Maple Lane.
That's not the 2. So I
But
don't know
I'm
who
saying
assigned
that's
it.
the way we're
All right.
supposed, that's
I'm
how
with
we,
you on that, but that's not,
Okay,
I
but
don't, since I don't really know what the mechanism is for signing addresses, and I think it's probably beyond the purview of this board. We'll just stick to
Okay.
the setback. So 3, that line is and again, these are approximate. I don't really have the tools to measure this exactly when I'm doing it on the computer, but 3 is approximately 35 feet back. That's the required setback for the front yard. 2 are the 2 side yard setbacks. So in this zone, I don't know if I have you're required to have 15 feet on one side, a total of 30 feet. So 1 and 2, so the side yards have to equal 30. 1 has to be a minimum of 15. The one to focus on, they have plenty in the front on the 2 side, but in the back we see, so what looked like an addition that was almost completely non-conforming, it's actually only the corner of the building that they're adding, because that is actually the rear. I mean, that is actually the side yard. Does that make sense?
So, no, I'm actually confused.
All right.
I'm
They're
very
saying,
confused.
you're saying that the Poplar Lane side is the narrowest
Yes.
between the lot lines, not the distance from the house to the road?
It's the narrowest.
You're defining it as.
We have
as
you have the definition in front of you, so it's
Right.
defined by yes.
But it's not the narrowest distance between the dwelling and the road, it's the narrowest side
it's
to
the
side, you know what I'm
frontage.
saying, like front to,
It's the frontage.
okay.
Strange, I know, it doesn't.
Right.
You look at this, that's actually the front of the house is actually the side of the house.
Right, so I think I would have read it a little differently, but I guess that makes sense.
Someone want to read it out loud so we can,
I'll do it.
sure, thanks.
Okay.
This is 98-10, corner lot, subparagraph A. Front yard setbacks and requirements are required for all yards which abut streets. Okay. The narrowest yard of a lot which fronts on 2 or more streets shall be deemed to be the front yard. The narrowest yard of a lot which fronts on 2 or more streets shall be deemed to be the front yard. I don't know how else to read it, other than Poplar Lane is the narrowest yard of this lot, and that would be deemed to be the front yard. The yard opposite that one is the rear yard, and all others shall be side yards. So the chair's drawing, I think, correctly depicts what the code calls for. Again, I don't know how else to read it. Maybe you do.
Well, no, my interpretation was that it was measuring the distance between the house and the road, not, in other words, so that the narrowest yard would be from the house to Maple Lane.
Typically, what you're saying would be the distance from the house to the road would be referred to as the setback.
Right.
Depth.
And the narrowest setback would be the house to Maple Lane. But I could see it being interpreted the other way as well. I mean, I understand the side thing. That's just not how I read it at first.
I had to read it 10 times.
Yeah.
But I think that, I think the way that we're reading it is the correct read. I look at the lot and I wonder why. But oftentimes you have corner lots where they are very narrow on the main street, in this case Maple Avenue, but they extend deeper along what I'll call the side street, or maybe it's a secondary street that makes the intersection. And then typically, it would make sense. Then the narrowest yard would be the front yard. But in this case, especially with the house facing Maple Lane,
Yeah.
Everybody's reaction would be that's the front yard.
Yeah.
I certainly understand it, but by this code, it's not. Resulting in really what they asked for was a rear yard variance. What they now would require would be a side yard variance for the 8.7 feet
So it would be a 6 feet 5 inch
variance.
variance. Yeah, so very small variance. So that's good news for you,
Mm.
because it's
Oh,
only that
okay.
little triangle. Let me see.
So then one's in
Yeah.
white.
So-
I'm trying to.
So just to be clear, only this triangle of this building is outside. And again, this is an approximation based on my ability to draw accurately without measuring tools.
Okay.
So that's what the board needs to consider, whether we want to grant a variance for that. I should mention it, I guess, has anyone been to the property?
Hmm.
40 on corner lots.
Yeah.
Go look at this property.
Yeah, it's, just for the record, this is actually already mostly built, I would say.
At the,
You have a comment or question? Absolutely.
Excuse me, can I make one pitch for that? I'm my phone tomorrow.
Oh, sure. You want, we can send a copy to you too.
Or like this, how is that doing right now? Like when you make this like square, the way the square, like,
Yeah.
thank you, appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I'll send it to
Make a
you.
note.
Okay.
Now, what is this part of the house right here?
No, that,
Oh, no?
no, it's actually part of this. There's a very large parking area here, which is another issue altogether. But there's a large parking area here. This is just the entrance of that
Oh, okay.
paved area.
where's
was a- this was a-
where is the house exactly?
The house is, sorry, it's gotten obscured by all these lines here.
Okay.
This is I'm sorry. So this is actually the addition, which
That they
is,
just did?
which is partial, it's almost complete. I'm not sure what percentage. I haven't been inside. This is the existing dwelling, this box here.
This house functioned as a chiropractor's office as well as a residence for a long
I
time,
see.
which is the
Ah.
large parking area.
lot there. Okay.
Where is it exactly in,
It's in Walton Lake.
Walton Lake
At the top,
Estates?
at the top of
Okay.
Maple Lane. It used to be Nemeth Chiropractic years and years
Oh,
ago.
okay, okay.
Oh, where did I move to?
How
Just
long
practice, anyways,
Years ago.
Mr.
like,
Chair,
I
I
mean,
just would
20
like to make
plus-
a
20 plus
comment
years.
on the application.
of course.
It came into our board as an application for a rear yard variance upon this, investigation. I guess it looks like it's a side yard variance, but I would like to refer the question back to the building inspector to make sure that, that we're right and that there's not something else going on with this lot or someplace else in the code, because she called it out as a rear yard
Yes.
variance. This board has the ability to amend, the application without anything further from the applicant. We can do that as part of our record, but I don't want to, I'm going to use the word offend the building
Yeah.
inspector. I don't mean that in
Yeah.
the typical sense,
Right.
but I don't want to second guess what she said.
Okay.
And so if we could refer the question to the building inspector to either affirm what we think is now this side yard variance, and just get that back from her.
Before proceeding.
Yeah.
Okay, I did actually text her today regarding this,
Oh,
just like a little while ago. So we're gonna have a conversation tomorrow, but I will make it official with a letter.
Yeah, if you could, I think the
Yes.
record should be clear on that.
Yes.
As I say, I don't want to usurp the building inspector's determination
Okay.
of what this, especially in light of what Dan said in his reading of the code. Maybe hers has been the same, and that's the way she's been reading, or the code has been read in the town of Chester forever, in which event we might have to revisit the
Or it could
question.
just be simply look at the site plan and accepted it on face value
Yes.
because it's very, it's an official site plan.
Okay, so if we could do that, I
Okay.
suppose we can, if the applicant wants us to schedule a public hearing. But I'd like to have that as part of the record. If we come in at the public hearing or before then would be preferable.
Okay.
All right, so the next step would be to schedule a public hearing for this application, which would be, what's the next date? I thought I wrote it down, October 19th. If you'd like to move forward. Let's see, let me just check here. Do we have, so I don't believe there's any 239 referrals regarding the county. You are within 500 feet of Palisades Interstate Park, so that would just go out with the regular mailings. Okay,
So it's not 300, because it's the park.
well, the park,
Right.
backyard is basically.
Yes.
Right, so it's 0 feet. All right, so if you'd like to go ahead, we can schedule a public hearing for the next, what did I say?
So now it's
October?
gonna be for a side yard,
Well, we're going to check with the building inspector,
but that's what
confirm
we
that.
believe it is right now.
Yeah, if she confirms that it's really the side yard variance, I'll prepare the legal notice accordingly.
Okay.
Okay.
So you don't know what we're looking for, like how many feet, whatever?
Well, if it's a side yard variance, the distance currently is 8.7, so it's a
6.5 inches.
6.5.
No, 6 feet 5 inches.
Yeah,
Right.
6 feet 5 inch
Inches.
variance. If
Okay.
it's a rear yard,
It's
it's
31 feet 5 inches. There you go. Forget it.
Okay.
So it's a much different story.
yeah, percentages, would have been a 78% variance if it was a rear yard variance. As a side yard variance, it's 41 or 42%. It's much smaller,
Mhm.
percentage-wise, numerically. It's much smaller variance being requested.
Okay, so it sounds like we're going to schedule, we're going to schedule a public hearing for the next meeting. I'm getting a yes there, nod, two
Yes,
nods.
yes.
All right, so let me make a motion to schedule a public hearing for 46 Maple Lane for October 19th, 2023. Can I get someone to second the motion? That's
I'll
Julie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say nay. Anybody abstain? All right, so we've scheduled the public hearing for October 19th, 2023. There's a couple of things you have to do. Melissa will explain that's required, and there's this time element that has to be followed. Melissa will explain it all to you clear patiently, as she always does. We do have to do our business with Secra. Let's do Secra while we're thinking of it. We have some time. All right, so this, so for the purposes of Secra, this has to do with side yard setback or rear yard setback, depending on how this all plays out. That is by definition a type 2 action. It's an area variance. So I'll make a motion to make us the lead agency for the purposes of Secra and to declare that this is a type 2 action. Would someone like to second that?
I'll second it.
Tom seconds that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nay. Anybody abstain? All right, so we have fulfilled our obligation under Secra. Thank you very much. I believe that's the end of our agenda. Is there any other business? Any other comments or concerns? Oh, before I forget, for board members, I think at the end of last year, I mentioned to you that instead of us reaching out before every meeting and saying who's going to be able to attend, if you could just remember, if you are not going to be able to attend, to notify us. That will simplify things. We'll still send out a reminder. But if you can't attend, please give us adequate warning so we know whether or not we can carry out the business of the board. No other questions, comments, business? I will make a motion to close the meeting.
I'll second it.
Tom, you're right there for me. Tom seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say nay. Anybody abstain? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen. Reach out to Melissa and she'll set you up with what you need for the public hearing.
Yeah, I'll be great.
So the town